Hello, welcome back to my YouTube. This is going to look a little bit different to the other ones, although I feel like every single YouTube has been a little bit different. So I'm just keeping you all on your feet. But I've not been able to train this week, so I haven't got any exciting clips or training or anything like that. And I have been struggling with my endometriosis. So I thought I'd actually come on and actually just talk a little bit about that, as this is something I've literally had basically since starting my period. I didn't always know that that's what it was, but that's something that I have always suffered with, so quite a long time. If you don't know what endometriosis is, it's basically where you have lining that's like the lining of your uterus in other areas of your body, so it makes it difficult for it to shed, which means basically this can cause like scarring, inflammation, and with this you do tend to be more estrogen dominant. So like when I was younger, obviously when I started my period, I was basically like in severe pain. Like I wasn't able to move from my bed, especially the first couple of days of my period. I would faint all the time. Like I was just very unwell. Obviously lots of different trips back and forth from the doctors, obviously not really getting anywhere. Usually it does take people, I think it's on average around about, is it 5 or 7 years, I think, to actually get diagnosed. So obviously it's quite a long time, and obviously it's not something that you can, physically see. So it always makes things, a lot harder. But eventually I did get diagnosed with it. Wasn't always told the best advice. I remember, I think I was like 18 and I was told to just have a baby. Otherwise you might never be able to have one and it might make symptoms better and all of this type of stuff, which just isn't true. Like it just isn't true. So basically when I was younger, I was put on the pill to basically help with symptoms, which worked for a little bit until it didn't. It was again so many like trips to the doctors back and forth, see what was going on, see how we can manage it. And I did end up having the operation, which again did actually put me out for a little bit, and then things became a little bit better, then it got worse, and then I ended up going back on the pill again. Like I've been back and forth with different contraceptions, and I did end up having the coil fitted. Now, this was something I didn't actually want, but the doctor said to me, well, if you don't actually have it, then we're not going to help you anymore. So I ended up having it, which I had taken out back in January last year, which actually is crazy because we're in February now. So yeah, I had it taken out in January last year because I just had enough of it, because I was still, suffering and things like that. So I was just like, I'm just gonna come off it. And to be honest, like the symptoms and things that I've been experiencing haven't been as bad as what they were previously, right? And again, this is going to become a lot down to obviously my lifestyle now. My lifestyle now is a hell of a lot different than what it used to be when I was like a teenager. I train more, I move more, my nutrition's in a much better position. And again, with endometriosis being like an inflammatory condition, it's important that we're actually focusing on that, especially when it comes to the types of foods that we're having. Having anti-inflammatory foods is going to be really important. And again, like thinking about what we're doing with training and how it actually affects the body and things like that, like all of this comes into it. So again, with like supplementation, there's different supplementation that I'm taking to obviously help with symptoms, to help with pain. And again, all of these things have had such, a positive benefit to, how I've been feeling and how my body's been responding. But I've had, a couple of months, and I always tend to find that stress does make it worse. Like people tend to have different triggers, and for me, stress is definitely one of them. Obviously, with coming off contraception is about getting your cycle regular again anyway. So my cycles have been a little bit irregular the past few months. So with this, obviously this month has been particularly hard. I am quite late. I have just hit a point where my body's just like, no, we're not doing anything. Obviously a couple of weeks ago I told you all about obviously the photo shoot prep, and obviously we started and nothing was intense. My food wasn't low or anything like that, but it just tend to obviously around the time of the month, everything, my whole body's just gone, no, we can't do anything. You just need to chill, which is basically what I'm having to do. Obviously with endometriosis being estrogen dominant, there's going to be some imbalance there with hormones. So we need to obviously look at balancing those hormones out as well. So this week I've had to pull out from training, which again, it's frustrating because it's like, I get into a rhythm or something and then it's like, okay, we have to stop that. But it's always important to focus on the things that you can do. Like when I was first diagnosed, I was very much in the position where I was like, oh, this is why I can't achieve my goals, and I had that very much victim mentality of like, well, I'm never going to be able to achieve anything, never going to be able to do anything, like this is just who I am. Until I got to a point where I was like, actually, no, that's ridiculous. Like, yes, this can affect things and affect how you feel, and obviously with inflammation and things like that, but it's not actually going to stop you from getting results. We're just going to have to work around it, okay? And it's going to look a little bit different compared to somebody who doesn't have it, right? But again, so many people have different obstacles and so different things that they have to, focus on. It doesn't mean that you can't do something. You just have to put yourself in a position where you work around it and you don't actually quit, you don't give up. And that was one of the reasons why I ended up deciding to compete, because I was like, right, well, if I can do this for endometriosis, then, that just goes to show, like, you would just have to work around things. So obviously, I've had a year of like not dieting. I think last year I dieted for around about 6 weeks, and that was it, and my body wasn't really in a position to do that then, so like we literally halted it there, because I was like, it's not really worth it. Like, is it worth me dropping a bit more body fat compared to how I'm feeling, or should I just continue focusing on my health, which is obviously what I did do. So obviously this year it was like, okay, let's have another push, let's set a new goal and work towards something. And obviously now I've been hit with this position of being like, okay, well, we need to hold back off things. So I am gonna get some bloods done and see what is going on, make sure that my body is in a position to push, because obviously that's going to be important, because if my body's not in a position where we can push, like, it's just going to be a constant battle. So we just need to make sure, obviously, health is always a priority, because if you're in a good healthy position, like, it's going to be a whole lot easier, right? So obviously I'm just going to see how this week goes, obviously get some bloods done, see where I'm sitting with things. I have still been like sticking to my calories and things like that. I've had a little bit more food this weekend. Obviously Lee, my coach, has basically said, look, we're not prioritizing fat loss right now, we need to focus on health. So obviously your body's in like a very fatigued state, so just give the body a little bit more food if that's what's needed, right? So sometimes we have to push, sometimes we have to pull back, and that's something with anybody as well, like, it's important to do. Just as an example, with one of my clients this week, she's working towards an amazing goal. She's sticking to her nutrition, she's got cardio, she's doing her training. Things were a little bit stagnant, right? And you have to put yourself in a position where you go, right, do we actually need to push more? Actually, do we need to pull back a little bit? And that's why the relationship with your clients and understanding what's going on is really important, and understanding the expectations of like where things should be sitting, and you get to know the clients as well, right? Because I know this client is super consistent with her nutrition, right? I don't think she's lying to me or anything like that. So I was like, right, we don't actually need to push more, because like what we're doing is going to be driving progress. What I actually want us to do is have a few days off training, right? I was like, we do no cardio, no training, we have a few days just focusing on food, getting a little bit more recovery in there. And what's happened? She's had a big drop from that. So like, understanding your clients, understanding your body is always like so important. And with like my endometriosis as well, it's taken me a long time to know what my body needs, because I was always in that position of like, no, you can just push, and but like always trying to push through the pain when I was having a flare up and stuff like that, and just continue training, but then that would actually set me back for much longer. So now I know that actually, if I am struggling and I am having a flare up, that I need to actually just pull back for a little bit and just allow my body to rest and recover, and then I can push on again, rather than actually causing more inflammation to my body and making it a whole lot longer to be able to actually recover from. Because what you have to think about when it comes to training, it is an added stress on the body. Like, yes, it is a good stress, but actually if your body's already going through a hell of a lot of stress, it's only going to cause more inflammation to your body. So it's knowing when to push, it's knowing when to pull back, it's knowing what to do with obviously your nutrition as well. Like I said, nutrition choice is always going to be so important, and not just if you've got endometriosis, but for anybody anyway. Lots of highly processed food isn't going to do anybody any good, right? Because what you have to think about is like, it is going to be a lot harder to digest, it is going to cause inflammation. Whereas if you've got more of a whole food approach, you're getting good quality foods, you're having anti-inflammatory foods in there, that is going to help to reduce inflammation on your body. It's going to help with digestion, it's going to help with energy levels and how you're feeling. So all of these things are so important. And you know, and that's why sometimes that, like, if it fit your macros thing, like, it's just annoying, like, because it doesn't actually educate anybody on food quality. It's like, oh, if you stick to these calories, then you're gonna be able to drive fat loss, which, yeah, of course you can do, but it's gonna make fat loss a whole lot harder because you're not gonna be able to get a lot of food, and you're going to be in a position where you are becoming nutrient deficient because you're not getting those nutrients from fruit, veggies, and the foods that, you know, we should be eating. So, you know, it is really, really important that, like, you know, if you're ever in a position where you are struggling or something, or you're in a position where you have endometriosis as well, or, you know, whatever it might be, it's going, okay, what factors can I actually control and change that are part of my actual lifestyle? It's not always about getting, you know, supplements. It's not always about, you know, having certain procedures and things like that, or putting yourself in a position where, like, nothing works for me. It's about going, okay, what can I actually change? What things are actually going to benefit me? You know, I went through a period of fully taking out, like, dairy and gluten. Now a lot of people will be like, oh, I don't want to do that. I'm like, that's fine, but do you actually still want to be in the same pain and the same situation that you're in? And when it comes to obviously doing things like that, it's not a case that you can never eat it again, but it's about lowering inflammation. Things like dairy and gluten add more inflammation to the body, right? It's harder to digest and things like that. So it's going, okay, we'll just pull it out for a period of time, see how your body responds, and then you can slowly add it back in again. So, like, for myself, I don't tend to eat a lot of dairy and gluten anyway, but I'll now I'm in a position where I can eat that. But when I'm in a position, if I'm having a bit of a flare up, then I will be like, right, okay, let's just reduce on that again, because again, that just helps with lowering that inflammation on the body. And like I said, there is supplements that, you know, I'm taking that massively help with my endometriosis, which I won't go into on this video. But there is always things that we can do, right? It's very easy to be in a position, especially if you are going to the doctors back and forth and you feel like you're not really getting anywhere. You know, take a step back and just look at your daily lifestyle and what can you do? You know, can you go out on more walks? Can you eat better quality foods? You know, can you focus on your sleep? Because again, that is such a huge factor. And again, my sleep the past week has been absolutely horrendous. But that's just simply because, like, I'm just been really struggling with, like, the pains and stuff like that, which again is not going to help with the fatigue that I'm feeling. You know, so it's about implementing things that are going to help to improve that. And it's not easy, and it's not just something you can do for one night and be like, oh, everything's fixed. Like, you've got to continue working at it. You know, that's always so important. So yeah, obviously, you know, if you're in a position where you are struggling with something, it's like, look at your daily routine, look at your lifestyle, look at, is there anywhere else that you can get support from? You know, is there anything else that you can be doing? And again, another other big one, like, if you are in a position where you're going back and forth from doctors and stuff like that, just make sure that you are writing everything down, the symptoms, what you're experiencing, how long it lasts for, the dates, how frequently this is happening, you know, and document it so you've got something to actually give. Because sometimes when you go to the doctors, it's very hard to just be able to memorize everything off the top of your head, you know, especially if you're waiting for an appointment and then you get the appointment and you're actually fine. You're not in that pain anymore. You know, it's just making sure that you're doing everything in your power that you can be doing, you know. And you know, it is tough and it is hard, but never put yourself in a position where you're feeling like you're, you know, you can't do anything or you're never going to get anywhere, because there is always things that you can be doing. So for myself right now, the mission is getting myself back feeling back to normality and being able to, you know, obviously start pushing again with training and things like that. So yeah, we'll see what the next few days bring. And yeah, that's pretty much everything I've got to really talk about, I think. But yeah, if you want to continue following this journey, you know what to do: like, subscribe, all of that jazz, and I'll catch you very soon.